Once I read this law, I'm going, it's got to be close to that now for the city proper there. So I started calling the city statistician once a week.
Rick Harrison told the world he had already paid his son Cory's medical bills. But Cory had $400 in his bank account, $120,000 in debt, and a GoFundMe still running. These two spent 23 seasons building a business millions believed in. What exactly happened? And why did it leave fans questioning everything they thought they knew about this family? Join us as we find out what has been happening between Rick Harrison and his son, Cory. The man behind Big Hoss. Cory Harrison did not grow up watching television. He grew up working inside one. Long before the headlines, this was his life. By the time he was 9 years old, he was already behind the counter at the gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas, watching his father close deals, learning how to read people, and figuring out the value of things before he had finished elementary school. Most kids his age were riding bikes or playing video games. Cory was learning the pawn business from the ground up. When the History Channel approached the Harrisons in 2009 with the idea for a reality show, the family said yes. What followed were 23 seasons of Pawn Stars, one of the most watched programs in cable television history. The gold and silver became a tourist destination with lines stretching out the door. Rick Harrison became a nationally recognized name, and Cory, playing Big Hoss, became the face fans connected with most. The easygoing son who argued with his father over the counter, backed deals he believed in without hesitation, and always found a way to end the day laughing, regardless of how the negotiation had gone. What the show never really captured was how hard Cory worked on things that had nothing to do with the cameras. At his heaviest, he had reached close to 402 pounds. His doctor put him on preventive diabetes medication and was direct about where things were heading. That conversation shifted something. Cory committed to lap band surgery and built a serious fitness routine around recovery. Boxing 12 rounds a day, 5 days a week. Over time, he lost close to 200 pounds. He talked about being able to touch his toes again for the first time in years. None of that transformation was for the show. There were no cameras and no storylines built around it. For years, Cory had been performing a version of himself for television. The weight loss was the first thing he did entirely for himself. By the time season 23 wrapped filming in mid-2024, Cory had already made up his mind. He told a reporter that he had loved the show deeply, but that the past few years had worn him down. He was 41 years old and could not keep playing a character who was meant for a younger man. He was no longer in contract talks with the History Channel and had no intention of restarting them. He moved to Tulum, Mexico, a few months after filming ended. He rented a home near the beach, made connections with local officials, and started developing a podcast. For the first time in his adult life, he was operating on his own terms. Las Vegas was behind him. The pawn shop was behind him. The Big Hoss character was something he had left in Nevada. Then, in late January 2025, just one day before his father's wedding in Cancun, Cory was in a serious motorcycle accident outside Tulum. He posted a photograph from his hospital bed almost immediately. He was smiling. He told followers he was doing fine, 3 hospital nights in, with 11 breaks in his rib cage, and noted that his crash bars had saved his life. The tone was casual, almost joking. What the post did not mention was the internal bleeding. It said nothing about the concussion. It did not indicate what the next 2 months would actually look like, or how close to the edge things would get before anyone outside his immediate circle understood how serious the situation had become. The smiling hospital photo told one story, but what was really happening inside his body? The crash, the cost, and the collapse. The motorcycle accident happened one day before Rick Harrison's wedding in Cancun. Cory had been riding near Tulum with a friend, Valentino, when he went down. While he lay on the ground, unable to move and struggling to breathe, motorists passing the scene taunted him. Despite being in serious pain, his first request when people reached him was for a cigarette. He was trying to stay composed, as he always did. He was rushed to a hospital in Playa del Carmen. 11 breaks in the rib cage, a concussion, internal bleeding. Doctors stabilized him and began treatment. Rick Harrison visited him during this period and told reporters his son would fully recover. The early expectation was bed rest, a difficult few weeks, and a gradual return to normal. The financial clock, however, was already running. After 14 days, the mounting costs at the Playa del Carmen facility became unmanageable. Cory left against medical advice. He returned home to Tulum. Within days, his condition deteriorated sharply. He was in severe pain and could barely function. A house doctor was called in and administered IV fluids and morphine to stabilize him. That brief period of relative calm at home did not last. His oxygen levels dropped to critical levels. The group around him, led by his close friend Aaron Chambers, made a decision. Instead of returning him to the expensive tourist area hospitals near the coast, where costs had already proven unsustainable, they drove him more than 4 hours inland to a medical facility in Mérida, where care was significantly more affordable. The drive was not without risk. There were stretches during that journey when the people in the vehicle were not certain they would arrive in time. When Cory reached Mérida, doctors discovered something the earlier facility had missed. One of his ribs had separated completely and was pressing into his lung. The situation required immediate surgical intervention. Nearly 3 liters of blood were drained from his chest cavity. He went through 3 separate surgeries. He spent another 18 days in the hospital before he was finally discharged. When the bill arrived, it came to more than $100,000. His bank account had $400 in it. He drained it. Then he maxed out his credit cards, trying to cover whatever portion he could. He was 3 months behind on rent, had no income, and was not strong enough to travel back to the United States. He was financially paralyzed, stuck in Mexico with a bill that eclipsed everything he owned. He had walked away from Pawn Stars voluntarily, which meant no production salary. The residual checks from reruns were still arriving, but were not built to absorb an emergency at this scale. He owned 5% of the gold and silver pawn shop, but held no active operational role, which meant that the stake generated no income. In early March 2025, Chambers launched a GoFundMe page with a goal of $100,000. He documented everything in the fundraiser description: the accident, the extended hospitalization, the 3 surgeries, and the financial collapse. The page went live. Cory's father had not yet said anything publicly, but buried inside the fundraiser was one detail most coverage missed. Why did Cory refuse heavy pain medication? Adam's shadow and the numbers. Nobody saw. When the doctors in Mérida recommended heavy pain medication, Cory pushed back. He was lying in a hospital bed following 3 surgeries, with close to 3 liters of blood drained from his chest cavity, and a rib that had been pressing into his lung. The pain was severe enough that the people around him described it as unbearable. He resisted the medication anyway. The reason was his brother. Adam Harrison, Cory's half-brother, died of a fentanyl overdose in January 2024, exactly 1 year before the motorcycle accident. Adam was 39 years old. He had grown up around the same pawn shop and appeared on Pawn Stars over the years. His death had been one of the hardest things the Harrison family had gone through in recent memory. And now, 12 months later, Cory was lying in a hospital in Mexico, being offered the same category of drugs that had killed him. He did eventually take the medication. The pain left him no realistic alternative. But the hesitation was real and documented by Chambers in the GoFundMe description. Chambers described the worst moment of the drive to Merida. With Cory's oxygen levels dropping and no certainty about whether the vehicle would reach the hospital in time, Cory turned to the people around him and said he believed he was going to die there and that he did not have the money to keep receiving medical help. That moment was what made the financial contrast that followed feel as stark as it did. Rick Harrison's net worth has been reported at between $9 million and $12 million. Cory's was listed by Celebrity Net Worth at approximately $10,000, a figure that has not been independently verified and may not be accurate. Even accounting for the possibility that the number is significantly off, the gap between father and son after 2.5 decades on the same show was difficult to explain away. The two of them had worked together since Pawn Stars first aired in 2009. Same show, same building, same network, same audience across every one of those 23 seasons. Cory owned 5% of the gold and silver pawn shop, but held no operational role in the business, so his ownership stake generated no active income. When he left the show at the end of season 23, his production salary ended with it. The residuals from reruns continued, but they were modest and structured for passive income, not for covering a $100,000 medical emergency in a foreign country. Chambers made the point explicitly in the fundraiser. Being part of a famous television show does not come with a financial infrastructure designed to absorb a crisis. The show was the work. The show ending did not leave resources behind. When Cory addressed the media about what he could realistically do from his situation in Mexico, his assessment was blunt. He could not fly back to Las Vegas. He could barely move from his recliner. He had no options that did not require getting out of a chair. He was not well enough to leave. The GoFundMe was live. The story was circulating. And Cory's father, one of the most recognizable faces in American reality television, was about to make his position known. Rick Harrison finally responded publicly, but his two statements seemed to directly contradict each other. Rick's statement, unpacked. When the GoFundMe gained traction and the story spread across entertainment media in early March 2025, Rick Harrison responded. He said that Cory was a grown adult and that he would handle his own life however he chose. There was no reference to the accident, no acknowledgement of the surgeries, and no comment on the financial situation Cory had found himself in. The statement ran to 2 sentences. It read like a door being shut. It landed accordingly. Fans who had spent 23 seasons watching Rick and Cory argue over the counter, make deals together, and perform the rhythms of a family business on camera had expected something different. The response circulated quickly, and the reaction was not favorable. The warmth people had long projected onto the on-screen relationship was being held up against a 2-sentence dismissal, and the gap between the two was uncomfortable for many. Then, the following day, Rick issued a second statement. This time, the message had changed substantially. He said he had already paid all of Cory's medical bills in full and that this happened well before the GoFundMe was created. He added, again, that Cory was a grown man in his 40s and that managing his own finances was his responsibility. 2 statements, 24 hours apart. The first communicated complete disengagement. The second claimed full financial resolution had already taken place before the fundraiser existed. They did not fit together cleanly, and neither one settled the question the public was asking. Cory responded through the media shortly after. His answer was measured. He said that if his father had decided not to require repayment, The situation would have been a gift, and he would have been grateful for it. But based on how their personal and business relationship had functioned over the years, he did not see a path where a significant sum of money would have changed hands with no expectation of it being returned. He said he had no problem with his father. He said he loved him. The statement was controlled in a way that conveyed something beyond its words. The restraint said more than a direct accusation would have. The GoFundMe remained active after Rick's claim. The goal had been reduced from $100,000 to $18,000. As of early March 2025, approximately $8,800 had been raised against that reduced target. Neither the original goal nor the revised one had been reached. For anyone watching the fundraiser closely, the continued existence of a page raising money for bills that Rick claimed had already been settled was something each person was left to interpret on their own. Cory also faced a separate wave of public skepticism from people who questioned why someone with a television profile needed to solicit donations from strangers. He responded directly, posting a message online asking people not to direct criticism at someone already in a difficult position. He also said that once he was healthy enough to work again, he intended to donate to a children's hospital. The response carried no self-pity. He was not asking for sympathy. He was asking for the situation to be seen plainly and for a basic level of decency from strangers. The fundraiser was still short of its goal. Rick's claim of prior payment had not closed it down, and in a Las Vegas courthouse, a separate legal case involving Rick Harrison had been quietly working its way through the system, filed by another member of his family, over money and what allegedly happened at a moment when that person was unable to fight back. Another Harrison family member was already suing Rick, and the timing raised familiar questions. The pattern, the pawn shop, and the show goes on. While the GoFundMe story was generating coverage in early 2025, a separate legal matter involving Rick Harrison had already worked its way through the court system. Rick's own mother, Joanne Harrison, had sued her son. The lawsuit alleged that after the Harrison family patriarch died in 2018, Rick pressured Joanne into signing over her 51% ownership stake while she was in the ICU. The lawsuit characterized the transfer as having occurred under conditions that did not allow for free or informed consent. Joanne also alleged that after the ownership stake changed hands, Rick cut off the $25,000 monthly stipend she had been receiving. That payment had been her primary financial support. After the transfer, it stopped. No verdict had been handed down in that case as of early 2025, and Rick had not been found liable for anything. The case did not move quickly. Court filings stretched into 2024, with disputes over control of the business and access to financial records continuing behind the scenes. Joanne remained publicly silent outside of the legal filings, and Rick did not address the case in detail through the media. The case remained active as of early 2025, with no public resolution announced. There were no indications of a settlement and no timeline for when a decision might be reached. The dispute over ownership and financial control remained open, even as the business and the show continued moving forward. What was clear was that control of the gold and silver pawn shop had already shifted. Rick was running the business. The show had continued for years after the ownership transfer, and the structure of the company that millions of viewers had associated with the Harrison family was no longer what it had once been. The case remained unresolved, but the allegations had already drawn attention to the change in control of the business. Then, while Cory was still recovering, news about the show he had built his adult life around came through. Pawn Stars was coming back, with production already underway. New episodes were filmed in early 2026, with a return scheduled for 2027 on a new network. Rick Harrison was involved. Chumley was returning. The show that had run for 23 seasons and gone on what appeared to be an indefinite hiatus was being revived, and filming was already underway. Cory was not part of it, and he learned about it from a journalist. A reporter reached out to Cory for comment after the show's return was announced and asked for his reaction. Cory's response, as covered by the outlet, was that the information was entirely new to him. Nobody from the production, the network, or his own family had reached out. He had no details about the format, the network, or when filming had started. He was learning, in real time, and from a stranger asking for a quote, that the show was moving forward without him. He had not been pushed out. He had chosen to step back, believing that chapter was finished. The chapter had not finished. Filming had already started, and nobody had told him. The pawn shop where Cory Harrison had spent his whole life was open for business again. He was the last person to hear about it. The business he had spent his life building was already moving forward without him. After 23 seasons, millions believed they were watching a real family. Does this story change that for you? And if Cory walked back into that pawn shop tomorrow, would it make the show better? Or is that chapter already over? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.